One man's act of kindness uncovers a conspiracy so dark, it will make you question every stray cat, every barking dog, and even the people you love. Let us know where you were watching from and what time you found this video. We read every single comment and subscribe for more inspiring content. While Paul Reynolds was bringing groceries into his peaceful suburban house on a dismal day, he saw something peculiar. A scruffy cat with wide-eyed eyes was huddled on his doorstep. Despite the fact that its ribs were slightly protruding and its hair was matted, the eyes of the animal were the ones that truly attracted Paul's attention. They were not just terrified, rather, they were begging as if the animal was attempting to convey with them something of critical importance. Paul, who has a deep affection for animals, did not hesitate. After picking up the terrified cat, he made the decision to take it to the veterinarian who was located closest to him for a checkup. Unbeknownst to him, this act of generosity would lead him straight into a dark and terrifying nightmare. When Dr. Elena Carter, the local veterinarian, inspected this cat, her temperament changed. She was used to handling strays, but the instant she saw this cat, she changed mood. In the middle of the inspection, her hands were frozen. The tone of her voice was low and controlled when she addressed Paul, saying, "I need you to step outside for a moment." Paul, who was perplexed, cowed. It was via the door that was slightly ajar that he was able to hear the quiet but anxious phone call that Dr. Carter was making. "Yes, this is Dr. Carter at Oakwood Veterinary. Immediately, I need the presence of the cops. Code 47 is available to us." The 47th code, it was something that Paul had never heard of before. As he pushed his ear closer to his chest, his heart began to race. Then, he discovered it. The collar, which was made of a leather strap that seemed to be nothing special, moved slightly to the side when the cat moved about on the examination table. The surface underneath it glistened with a shiny sheen. The blinking red light is quite little. The clinic was surrounded by law enforcement officers and guys dressed in black suits within minutes. One of the officers subtly drew Paul aside, his expression solemn. It was him who announced that the cat had been implanted. Cameras very small, audio recorders are available. Even worse, there are tracking devices. Your area has been the target of a spying operation carried out by this animal. Paul's blood became ice cold. The old woman who lived next door to him, Mrs. Whitmore, who had been transferred to a nursing home just a few days before, came to his thoughts. She had forgotten to lock the door to her home. Had she been scrutinized by a third party attending to him? Afterward, the most unsettling information was revealed. "This is not the only one," the officer added. "There are more modified animals have been reported to have appeared in calm communities in the past. According to our records, in every instance, prior to a break-in or a disappearance, Paul was given a photograph by the police as he stood there, completely taken aback. It showed a dark figure that was captured on a security camera, and it showed the cat being placed close to Paul's front door. One particular element stuck out. Despite the fact that the person's face was obscured, a tattoo on their wrist depicting a twisted snake that was curled around a knife, one that Paul has seen previously in the past. In the past, his brother, who was a journalist who specialized in investigative journalism, had been doing research on a covert criminal organization before he disappeared. What was his last message? "They are employing those creatures. You shouldn't put your faith in them." Paul came to the realization that his brother had been correct, and then he came back. As he looked at the image, Paul's hands began to shake very little. The tattoo of a snake and a blade was apparent. It was the identical sign that his brother Daniel had written down in his notebook before he vanished. Her face was pallid as she approached, and Dr. Carter, "Paul, you have to get out of here." Right now, an ear-splitting crash reverberated from the rear of the medical facility before he had the chance to answer. During the moment when a dark figure rushed by the window and suddenly disappeared, the cops drew their firearms. The cat hissed, and its ears drew back as if it were aware of an impending threat. As Paul dashed out of the house, He was just in time to see a black vehicle out in the distance. Despite the fact that one of the police sent a radio call for assistance, the car vanished into the darkness. After then, his phone began to buzz. The number is not known. Simply put, one message: you shouldn't have taken the cat. It was as if his blood had frozen. Paul was aware that he needed to take immediate action. In the event that someone was keeping an eye on him via that cat, it is possible that they were also considering Mrs. Whitmore. Despite the fact that his instinct was screaming that answers were hidden within, he rushed to her abandoned home. The front door opened with a creaking sound, showing a house that seemed to have been frozen in time. There was a cup of tea on the table that had been partially consumed, and family photographs lined the walls. However, there was a problem. There had been a removal of a bookcase. There is a concealed panel behind it. Paul took a deep breath and then managed to pry it open. Inside was a little safe that was unlocked. Is that what's inside? It was a USB disk with the title Project Night Whisper. Through the use of his laptop, Paul connected the drive. A variety of encrypted documents, as well as a single video clip, were shown on the screen as it briefly came to life. He pressed the button. What emerged was a blurry picture of a laboratory with little lighting. The walls were lined with cages, and within each cage was an animal: cats, dogs, and even birds, each of which was equipped with a peculiar apparatus. And there, in the middle of the room, was a guy dressed in a white coat who was having a conversation with someone who was not being filmed. Phase 1 has been finished now. These neural implants are effective. Nowadays, these creatures are the ideal monitoring equipment since they are undetected and obedient. We will soon have eyes and ears implanted in each and every house. After then, the camera shifted to a second person who was taller and wore a black glove with a ring that looked like a snake and a dagger. Paul's breath was taken away as a result of the man's minor inclination. Additionally, the camera managed to capture his face for a brief moment. Indeed, that was his brother. There was no absence of Daniel. He was part of the group. The video suddenly became static. Paul's thoughts were all over the place. His brother was incarcerated. Was he someone who betrays you, or is there anything much more terrible? An unexpected glitch appeared on his screen just as he was about to comprehend it. Suddenly, a message appeared: there is someone watching you, to run. A sound emanated from the lower level, the sound of footsteps. As the footsteps became more audible, Paul's heartbeat sped up in his ears. They were slow and methodical as they made their way up the stairs toward him. After slamming the laptop shut, he looked around the room for a way out of the situation. It is the window. Now was the time for him to move. The door to the bedroom suddenly sprang open just as he was attempting to stuff the USB drive into his pocket. He was tall, dressed in black, and his gloved hand was resting on a firearm that was holstered. The man stood in the doorway, a shadow there. Now, Paul heard a voice that he hadn't heard in many years. You always were too curious for your own good, to Daniel. Paul had a mental short circuit. It seemed as if the guy in front of him was his brother. He had the same angular jawline and the same bright green eyes, but his demeanor was very different. It is hollow. The words "you're supposed to be dead" came out of Paul's throat. A twitch appeared on Daniel's lips. It was me. As a result, they reconstructed me. His temple was tapped by him, in the same way as the animals. To put it another way more sophisticated, it is a neural implant. Paul felt a pain in his gut. His sibling was not a betrayer of justice, the weapon that he was. There was a momentary pause in Daniel's frigid demeanor, and his eyes twitched. Paul, they are working to transform pets into spies. Everything is being recorded. There are voices, passwords, etc. Secrets are kept, and when an animal has reached the end of its useful life. Although his voice drifted off, the message was unmistakable. Why are you telling me this? Paul only murmured. Daniel growled, because they're coming for you next, and he explained why. The cat was taken by you. You checked out the files. Either they will try to recruit you or they will try to silence you. The sound of an automobile coming to a halt can be heard outside. The head of Daniel made a sudden turn toward the window, not a moment. "This is yours," in the hand of Paul. He thrust a little gadget, which was a thumb drive that was illuminating a faint blue color. "It has everything that you need right here. However, you are required to splash." During the gunfire, the glass was destroyed. Despite the fact that black blood was seeping through his jacket, Daniel moaned and clutched his shoulder. "Go," he yelled, propelling Paul in the direction of the stairway at the rear. While Paul was stumbling into the darkness, the cries of his brother could be heard echoing behind him. It wasn't until he reached the old rail yard on the outskirts of town that he finally decided to cease his jogging. Taking a deep breath, he inserted the blue disc into his mobile device. One folder was visible, and it was Termination Protocol, which is part of the Night Whisper master file. A list of names, hundreds of them, was included therein. Politicians are involved, the journalists. Even a senator is included. Furthermore, at the very bottom, Paul Reynolds is aiming for an active target status.